Hello everyone. So we are going to go through what our teacher table lesson would have looked like for today. Of course, it's a little different since you're not right here in front of me, but we have our handy dandy fraction tiles. So if we were wanting to compare 1/4 and 1/3, just like it says, I'm going to use my fraction tiles. And of course, we always want to use our 1 whole to remind us that we're making sure that our whole is the same size. Because just like we talked about in the video with the pizza, if I'm trying to compare a small object to a large object, I cannot compare the fractional parts, and I can't compare the size of the fractional parts. So we always want to make sure that we're using a whole that is the same size. So this wanted me to compare 1/4 and 1/3. So I've got 1/4 and I've got 1/3. Now we need to talk about when using these fraction bars, the fraction that is larger is the fraction that's going to be closer to being 1 whole. In other words, it's the one that goes further across the 1 whole red bar. So in this case, we can see that 1/4 is the smaller fraction and that 1/3 is the greater fraction. So if I wanted to prove that on my paper here, I could actually shade 1/4, and I'm trying to video while I'm shading, so I'm going to color as best I can. And 1/3. Now, I still don't want y'all to do the sheets yet that are the comparing fractions that have the bars that look like this. We're going to save that for later in the week. I'm just showing you how we can shade them to prove it. So we see that 1/3 again is closer to being that 1 whole. It is a larger piece because just like earlier with the brownies on the video that y'all watched, we saw that the more pieces we cut something into, the smaller each piece has to get. So my 1/3 is actually the larger fraction. So when I want to compare them, remember we read left to right, just like we read a book. So 1/4 is less than 1/3. Okay. So let's take a look at some other examples. On this example here, they want me to use fraction bars to find equivalent fractions. Now, we've talked before that equivalent means equal. Could also be another word or synonym. There you go, Ms. Reese. I threw something in for you. Another synonym for equivalent could be congruent, but in fractions we call them equivalent. So if I'm wanting to find fractions that are equivalent, that means they are the exact same size. So we're wanting a fraction equivalent to 1/3. So I could shade this 1/3 right here. And then we see that they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. So that means I'm comparing thirds to sixths. So once again, I've got my 1 whole because we have to make sure that our whole is the same size when we're comparing fractions. So there's my 1/3. And then we're going to find out how many sixths it takes to make 1/3. Clearly, those are not equal size. So we're going to put another sixth up there, and ta-da! So it takes 2 sixths, 1/6 and 1/6 makes 2 sixths, to equal 1/3. So this is going to tie into tomorrow's lesson when we start really looking at equivalent fractions and really looking at fractions even on a number line to compare them. But again, if I wanted to compare 1/3, my coloring is not going to be stellar, and find out what was equivalent, we would shade those 2 sixths because they have to end at the same place on my whole bar. So again, here's my whole. Here was my 1/3 and my 2 sixths. Notice everything is lined up to the left on the left side because that's like 0. We start at 0 when we work with fractions. So I can see that everything is lined up on the left and they both stop at the exact same place. So I know that they are equivalent to each other. Okay. So as we go through some examples this week, we'll do some more of these tomorrow. We will be looking at these sheets later in the week, not right now. I do not want you to do them yet. We will get there, I promise. But I just wanted to show you how we can model it both with fraction bars and also with something printed on paper where we can color in the fraction bars and either find equivalent fractions or to compare fractions and find out which one is greater.